When my son no longer sees me as just a mum, he merely requested that I linger a bit more, to engage in conversation, to offer him some companionship. Yet, when my son Jack gazed at me with those eyes brimming with a profound, unarticulated emotion, I realized this night would unfold in an entirely new way. The events that followed transformed my perception of who I was, and he. From where are you tuning in to watch us this evening? Please share your city in the comments below. Let us embark on a journey to discover the paths this tale may take. Allow me to recount the events of that evening in detail. It was one of those oddly serene evenings, the sort where time seems to pause in its tracks. Silence enveloped the space, devoid of the relentless ticking of a clock, the intrusive buzz of a phone, or the distant barking of a dog next door. The gentle murmur of the heater mingles with the rain's delicate caress against the windows, reminiscent of a long-lost lullaby. In the living room, I found myself cradling a lukewarm cup of tea, my gaze drifting over an old movie that had played out before my eyes countless times. The sort that doesn't demand your full focus, as the conclusion is already familiar to you. That seems to be the sentiment I've experienced regarding many aspects recently. Foreseeable, familiar, blurred at the periphery. Then Jack shouted into the air. His voice lacked the familiar resonance that typically filled the hallway. It possessed a gentler quality, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Mother. I slowly turned my head, pausing before I replied. Indeed. Would you consider spending some time in my room? That took me by surprise. It had been years since he had requested anything of that nature from me. At 30, he found himself back home for a time following the divorce. Despite our closeness, an invisible barrier of unvoiced sentiments had settled between us since his return. Adult children possess a certain humor that is quite peculiar. They care for you deeply, yet they establish boundaries they believe unnecessary. Yet, there was an element in his tone that caused me to hesitate. I set my tea aside and ventured down the shadowy corridor, glancing at the photographs of him from his childhood, the ones I had yet to remove. The individual with the absent front teeth and that beloved oversized red sweater. I tapped gently, adhering to the ritual. The door groaned as it swung ajar. Jack perched on the edge of his bed, elbows resting on his knees, his gaze fixed on the floor as if he was searching for something he had misplaced. He appeared weary, not merely the sort of fatigue that rest can remedy, but a profound, weighty exhaustion, the essence of kindness. I entered the room. Are you okay? He lifted his gaze to meet mine, and in that fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of it. Something unrefined. There was a depth in his gaze, as if he had been suspended in time, holding his breath far beyond the limits of comfort. Just stay with me for a while, he said. At this moment, solitude is not what I seek. I inclined my head and took a seat beside him. The mattress sagged beneath us. The rain persisted in its gentle percussion against the windows, a steady and rhythmic embrace of sound. We lingered in quietude for a heartbeat, near yet unconnected. The posture individuals adopt when they harbor a fear of overexposure, or perhaps a trepidation of uttering an inappropriate word. Last night, I found myself enveloped in a dream, he finally revealed. What sort of dream is it? He took a moment to pause. You were a part of it. A faint smile graced my lips. That's hardly surprising. It seems I linger in your thoughts, don't I? Yet his lips remained unmoved. It seemed tangible, as we discussed matters that often remain unspoken, thoughts I've longed to express. I gazed at him then, truly gazed, his jaw clenched with tension. His hands danced restlessly, and a realization dawned upon me. This transcended the realm of mere dreams. He carefully tucked away 1,000 moments, 1,000 words left unspoken. Jack, I spoke softly. Whatever it may be, you can confide in me. He inhaled deeply, as if preparing himself for what lay ahead. Have you ever sensed that you overlooked an opportunity? It feels as though life has veered off in an unexpected direction, leaving you wandering far from the path you were meant to follow. The question struck me deeply, not due to its shocking nature, but because it belonged to me as well. His voice echoed my silent truth. Constantly, I murmured. At last he turned his gaze toward me. It seems that this is what has been gnawing at my mind. I find myself in a state of uncertainty, questioning my identity and the path I am meant to follow. At times, the mere act of being close to you is the sole experience that resonates with authenticity. The atmosphere in the room grew denser, yet it carried a certain weight that was not unpleasant. It felt as though something significant was unfolding, an unforeseen circumstance that caught us both off guard. I extended my hand, gently placing it atop his. He remained close. Instead, he offered his palm to mine, our beards gently intertwining. An unspoken connection lingered in the air between us. It's perfectly natural to feel adrift, I remarked. At this moment, it's perfectly fine not to have all the answers. He cast his gaze upon our intertwined hands. I never anticipated that I would find myself feeling this connected to you once more. It's not the same as it was in my childhood. It has changed, and I find myself at a loss regarding how to navigate this new reality. His words twirled on the brink of a profound truth. There was a certain uncertainty about whether he was prepared to articulate it, or perhaps it was I who hesitated. Yet I remained steadfast, refusing to withdraw. I refused to let the moment shatter. Rather, I chose to remain. The silence spoke volumes. I allowed the rain to seep into the voids. At times, love takes on new forms. At times, intimacy takes on a new form. That evening, as we lingered in the stillness, his fingers entwined with mine, and his head gently finding its place against my shoulder, I came to understand that perhaps this marked the dawn of a new intimacy. It was a connection we had yet to comprehend, yet it was one we both craved. I found myself unready for the implications of that reality, not at this moment. Yet I remained. The following morning, rays of sunlight filtered through the slightly parted curtains, casting slender bands of gold across the room. It sprawled across the floor, extending toward the bed, like soft, inviting fingers, coaxing us from slumber. Yet I found myself wide awake. Sleep had eluded me. Jack remained beside me, fully clothed, sprawled atop the covers, his arm draped casually over his stomach as he slept. He appeared serene now, a gentle expression gracing his features that had been absent for months, perhaps even a span of years. I observed him for a brief while, reflecting on the boy he once was. The one who would slip into my bed, after the terrors of the night, the one who would drift into slumber, grasping my hand as if it were the sole lifeline in his turbulent, miniature universe. And now, we found ourselves here, grown individuals, transformed by the passage of time. And yet, something from last night had awakened the past, intertwining it with the present in a manner that felt overwhelmingly significant. I rose with utmost caution, mindful of the need to keep him undisturbed. As I rose to my feet, my joints let out a quiet complaint, a subtle reminder that I had left my 30s behind. I strolled into the kitchen, set a fresh pot of coffee brewing, and leaned against the counter, arms crossed in contemplation. The aroma of roasted beans started to permeate the air, enveloping the surroundings in a comforting embrace. I endeavored to gather my thoughts, yet they eluded me, cascading away like grains of sand through my grasp. What significance did last night hold? Was it merely a sense of comfort? A fleeting instance of mutual openness between mother and son? Or was there a more profound essence weaving through it? Something we had yet to summon the courage to identify. The kettle emitted a soft click, signaling its completion. I filled 2 cups and lingered for a while, gazing at the steam spiraling into the air. Suddenly, I sensed his footsteps trailing behind me, deliberate and uncertain. "Morning?" Jack murmured, his voice heavy with the remnants of the slumber. "Morning," I replied, extending the second mug toward him. "I thought this might be of use to you." He accepted it, our fingers grazing each other for a fleeting moment. And once more, that spark of tension ignited between us, not unpleasant, yet distinctly apparent. It felt as though we were poised on a threshold, a line neither of us could fully perceive. We occupied the quaint little table by the window, accompanied by 2 weathered chairs and a glimpse of the neighbor's unruly rosebush. Jack savored a sip. "Did I cause you any discomfort last night?" I raised my gaze from the rim of my cup. "No, did I give that impression?" He gently shook his head, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. "No, it's just that I've been reflecting on it, on all that I expressed." "I too," I confessed. He averted his gaze for a moment, then locked eyes with me once more. The divorce wasn't the sole catalyst for my turmoil. It seems I have been shouldering burdens for quite a while now. Isolation, uncertainty. I simply never allowed it to be revealed. You accomplished that last night. Indeed. He let out a soft, mirthless chuckle, barely audible. It seemed as though, in that moment, I could finally express what was truly in my heart. "Feel free to express your emotions, Jack. You have outgrown your boyhood. I desire your honesty and transparency with me." He regarded me with an intensity that felt almost palpable, his gaze holding a moment longer than necessary. Neither inappropriate nor alarming, yet undeniably intense and distinct. "It transcends the mere sensation of being adrift," he remarked. "The sense of safety I experience in your presence is profound. What a unique sensation it is to be so near to another, stripped of all pretense." My heart throbbed with pain. I felt the urge to offer him solace, yet an inner voice urged me to allow him to express himself, to let the moment reveal itself in its own time. He continued, "When I lay beside you last night, it felt like more than just being with my mum. It was as if I were in the presence of someone who truly understood me, embracing every facet of my being without a hint of judgment. That serene truth lay between us, soft and untouched, like a blanket of fresh snow. "I perceive you," I spoke softly, and not merely as my child. His gaze sought out my own. "What is it that you perceive?" The inquiry rendered me utterly speechless. The weight of it was overwhelming, its delicacy palpable, and the complexity made a swift response impossible. I gazed at my hands. Before me stands a man who has endured much, a man in search of his path, a man worthy of affection, gentleness, and security, perhaps more than he has ever experienced. As I raised my gaze once more, I noticed a gentle warmth had settled upon his features. "Your presence reassures me that I am whole," I whispered softly. "Because you're not." Once more, silence enveloped the space, a stillness that seemed to pause time itself, drawing attention to the rhythm of each heartbeat. "Would it be all right if we spoke again this evening?" he inquired. "Perhaps." I lingered awake a bit longer. "I hope last night isn't the final chapter." My voice scarcely lifted beyond a whisper. "Indeed, that sounds appealing." We remained untouched. We remained on the edge, skirting the boundary with an unspoken understanding that required no elaboration. That night transformed something within us. It opened a realm where we could embrace honesty, perhaps even revealing our vulnerabilities like never before. And in some inexplicable way, I sensed that it was far from finished. Not at this moment, far from it. The day unfolded with a languid grace, reminiscent of thick honey cascading from a jar. As I moved through my daily rituals, I meticulously folded laundry, sifted through a pile of old correspondence, and tended to the plants basking in the sunlight by the window. Yet, my mind continually returned to Jack, returning to the way he had gazed at me across the table, the gravity of his words lingering in the air, and that undeniable sensation that a change had occurred between us. I attempted to convince myself that it was merely a bond of maternal affection, a profound connection rekindled after years apart. Isn't that the sentiment any devoted mother would experience? Yet, a fragment of my being, the one that had faded into silence over time, the one that once yearned for more than mere necessity, began to awaken. In that moment, a surge of vitality coursed through me, a sensation I hadn't experienced in ages, and it filled me with a sense of trepidation. As dust settled in, following the meal, the home was enveloped in a familiar stillness, interrupted solely by the soft clatter of dishes in the sink and the sporadic murmur of the refrigerator. Jack had kindly offered to tidy up, yet I dismissed his gesture with a wave of my hand. I required a brief interlude, a chance to simply inhale and exhale. While I polished the counter, I caught sight of him gliding through the hallway, hesitating momentarily at the archway, as if he had words lingering on his lips. I raised my gaze. "Are you heading to bed?" I inquired. He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. I intended to linger in my room for a while, unless... I lingered in anticipation. "Unless you were inclined to join me as you did last night." My chest constricted, not from fear, but from a weight far more profound. Expectation hangs in the air, inquisitiveness, a subtle warmth that eluded my grasp. I inclined my head in agreement. Allow me to conclude my work here. After a brief interlude of 10 minutes, I re-entered his room. The atmosphere was altered from the previous night, not due to any tangible changes, but because we had both transformed within it. An electric tension hung in the atmosphere, reminiscent of the stillness that precedes a storm, both hushed and filled with anticipation. He found himself on the floor once more, propped against the bed, a pillow nestled behind his back for comfort. The bedside lamp illuminated the space with a gentle amber light, creating an atmosphere that felt almost ethereal. "I didn't want to lay down yet," he said as I walked in. "I wished to linger in wakefulness a little longer." A smile graced my lips. "Let us engage in conversation." He inclined his head and gestured to the empty spot beside him. I settled into a cross-legged position, my knees gently touching. It was like a gathering around an invisible campfire. Despite the absence of fire, the flicker of flames eluding us, only the warmth that flowed between us. "I've been reflecting on your words from this morning," he began, "regarding the prospect of encountering me, on the topic of transcending the role of merely being my mother." As I cast a fleeting look in his direction, he swept his fingers through his hair with a casual grace. It was as if excellent, yet it left me in a state of confusion. I find myself pondering why the being with you in this way feels so utterly right, so deeply comforting. I believed my feelings stemmed solely from loneliness, yet the reality is far more complex. "I don't believe it is either," I responded, my voice unwavering, even as my heart raced within me. He pivoted to confront me more squarely. "Your presence has a soothing effect on me, and conversing with you feels like a burden has been lifted." Once more, I find the air filling my lungs. I hesitated before responding. Doubt lingered in my mind, casting shadows over my confidence. Jack pressed on, noting that many would consider this level of intimacy between us to be quite rare. Yet, the opinions of others hold no weight for me. "Your presence deeply influences my emotions." He halted, lingering, observing my expression. In that moment, it dawned on me that what he truly required was not the freedom to act or the impetus to alter his circumstances, but rather the simple allowance to experience his emotions as they were. To understand that it was not misguided to yearn for connection, even when it manifested in an unexpected way for us both. I extended my hand and let it linger on his arm. He released a slow breath, as if he had been clutching it within him for the entirety of the day. He edged a bit nearer, almost silently. Not an excessive amount, only a whisper of contact. Our shoulders brushed against one another. His warmth enveloped me, and I remained still, unwilling to pull away. We lingered in that moment, the lamp's glow dancing gently, the stillness of the house enveloping us. And then he uttered a phrase that made my heart freeze. "May I rest my head in your lap, if only for a moment?" I gulped, a torrent of thoughts swirling in the depths of my mind. Yet my response emerged with a serene composure. "Indeed, it is possible." He moved softly, settling down with his head nestled on my thighs, his form curled slightly on the floor beside me. I rested my hand on his hair, my fingers gently weaving through it, reminiscent of the times when he was just a child. Yet it lacked the same essence. In this moment, there was a stillness, a maturity, and a delicate quality that permeated the air. He gently shut his eyes. My hand glided with deliberate slowness. In that instant, the universe faded away, leaving only the profound silence of existence. Only this serene instant. Only the two of us, free from labels and roles, simply two souls seeking to mend. "Thank you," he murmured softly. "For what purpose? For allowing me to be near you, for not distancing yourself." My throat constricted. "I'm not going anywhere," I murmured gently. "This evening is not suitable." I truly meant it. For whatever this was, whatever we were uncovering, it transcended confusion or a sense of wrongness. It revolved around a profoundly human experience, something truly exceptional. In that hushed space, with Jack's steady breaths mingling with the silence, I realized this was merely the beginning of something profound. The dawn of a new chapter had arrived. I couldn't tell you how much time passed in that moment. Perhaps just a few moments. Perhaps several hours. Time seemed to lose its meaning as Jack rested with his head softly nestled in my lap, my fingers weaving through his hair in a soothing, instinctive rhythm. Guarded, personal. A fragment of my being endeavored to find the precise words, to articulate the essence of what was unfolding between us. Yet nothing appeared to align. It had transcended the simple label of mother and son, evolving beyond the confines of how the world typically understood such a bond. Two souls, marked by the passage of time and the weight of circumstance, found solace in the act of breathing together. When Jack finally opened his eyes, he gazed up at me as if he hadn't merely been asleep, but as though he had truly awakened. He blinked several times, then offered a subtle smile. "I never intended to drift off," he whispered. I returned his smile, gently tucking a wayward lock of hair behind his forehead. "It was essential for you. You have been bearing an excessive load." He shifted gently onto his side, his face angled upward, his gaze unwaveringly fixed on mine. I never imagined I could experience such intimacy with another person once more. After all that has transpired, I had come to believe that such a connection had slipped away from me forever. "No more assumptions are necessary," I murmured softly. His expression shifted, not in a grand manner, but with a quiet nuance. The muscles encircling his eyes softened. His lips parted ever so slightly, hinting at words poised on the brink of utterance, yet uncertainty held them back. "What are we up to, Mum?" he inquired, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. With a deep inhalation, I steadied myself. The atmosphere surrounding us had grown more intense, laden with significance. "We are in the process of healing," I remarked. "We are discovering solace. We are grasping tightly to a truth that resonates deeply." He lifted his hand with a deliberate slowness, pausing for a moment before softly resting it on my arm. "It holds a deeper significance for me." "I understand," I replied, the reality constricting within me. We remained still. We refrained from delving deeper into its definition. Rather, we allowed the silence to convey its message. A silence so profound it seemed to speak in its own tongue. At last, he propped himself up, his hand lingering on my arm. The intimacy lingered, yet an undeniable shift had occurred. A serene understanding had enveloped us. "I can't bear the thought of losing this," he said. "Whatever it may be." "I will not," I responded. "There is no need for haste in grasping its essence. It is essential that we pay our respects to it." He nodded slowly, his eyes drifting down to our hands, now entwined on his knee. His thumb glided softly over mine. "Have you ever sensed that perhaps love appears in ways that differ from the narratives we were led to believe?" he inquired. My breath was momentarily suspended. My response came swiftly, without a moment's hesitation. Constantly. We lingered in that space, the lamp's gentle glow illuminating the corner, stretching shadows languidly across the room. The house was enveloped in silence. It, too, was attuned to the sounds around it, observing an unscripted moment, devoid of constraints, simply steeped in truth. I always believed I had to venture out there to discover who I truly am, Jack remarked, his hand sweeping in a vague motion toward the window. Yet perhaps I have been on a quest for something that has been present all along. I gently leaned forward and pressed my lips to the crown of his head, measured and intentional. "Your search ends here." He enveloped me in his embrace, resting his head softly against my shoulder, as he once did in his childhood. Yet, it seemed to carry a different weight now. It was the embrace of kindred spirits, two souls bearing their unique burdens, discovering the strength in sharing the load. We lingered in that moment for an extended time. Time seemed to stretch, devoid of any pressing need. There's no reason to disrupt the experience. At last, we rose and made our way to the bed, settling down side by side this time. We remained untouched. Not yet. Yet the distance that separated us crackled with a profound sense of understanding, a connection that resonated with the weight of history while simultaneously embracing the freshness of the present. "Do you believe people would grasp this?" he inquired. In the soft glow of the fading light, I turned to face him. "Perhaps not. However, that does not imply it is incorrect." He nodded, his eyelids fluttering closed, the rhythm of his breath becoming more languid. As I reclined next to him, observing the rhythmic ascent and descent of his chest, a profound change stirred within me, a serene embrace of reality, a peculiar tranquility. What transpired that night he invited me to remain in his room caught me completely off guard. Yet it is often the unforeseen instances that guide us home to our true selves, returning to the essence of connection, returning to the realm of emotions. Uncertainty looms ahead, leaving me in a state of anticipation. Perhaps it's best that we remain in the dark. Perhaps what we truly require is this intimacy, this delicate, exquisite truth we discovered when the chaos of the world finally subsided. For the moment, that suffices.